All right, welcome to our master class with our famous guitar instructor, Shredward.
Hello.
We'll be walking you through guitar pedal boards. So this is our first in our series of gear tech. Take it away, Shred.
Well, hey everybody. So we're gonna talk a little bit about pedal boards. I've got mine set up over here right now on this. It's actually on a keyboard stand and its own case. But I wouldn't typically play these pedals with my hands, but just so that we can see everything without having a second camera or you know slinging my camera down to look at my feet. Um, we're gonna talk a little bit about pedal boards. What is a pedal board? Essentially, what we do with a pedal board, it's a piece of equipment that holds either a bunch of pedals or one effect processing pedal that has multiple sounds in it or whatever. It's how we control our tone, what goes between the guitar and the amp. A really nice guitar into a really nice amp sounds great, and a lot of times you don't need a bunch of fancy, expensive pedals. But sometimes, to really truly express yourself, you got to be able to make any sound imaginable with your guitar. So I sort of built my pedal board so that I could make any sound I could think of when I'm in a guitar solo. If I want to go into using wah,
Yeah.
I'm just right there in it. Oh my god, am I hearing Daniel?
Oh,
I'm hearing Daniel. Here we go. So like I play in a cover band, and a lot of times there's synth parts that I'm not playing a synthesizer on stage, but I have pedals that can make these different sounds, so that I can, you know, play these songs. It might not be exact, but it can get me pretty close. Now my pedal board isn't as put together as she's been in the past, and it's hard to really see it from this angle. But I want to show you guys a quick picture of my pedal board in her prime. Just gotta share my screen. Find her. Oh. That's my pedal board. I guess you can see that. Can you guys see that picture? Oh, I can't see or hear you. Anyway,
No, I can't see that.
okay. Hold on.
I could see it, Shred. There you go.
Yeah, I can see it.
So there's my pedal board sort of in her prime. And we'll talk a little bit about what all this junk is on there, how heavy it is, why I hate myself so much and carry this around on tour for years. Um, but the first thing we really need to discuss is just sort of signal flow. Um, if you look over at the I can over here at the Dynacomp, that's a compressor pedal. That's the first pedal in my chain. That's where I plug my guitar in. And my guitar's going through all this stuff. It's crazy. There's like 16 pedals on there. It's ridiculous. Um, but what's really interesting is my signal's not going through all that stuff all at once. And we'll get more into this a little bit later, but essentially what's going on is I go into the compressor, into the wah, and then my guitar signal goes into this big silver guy down here on the bottom. And that from there, each of these buttons turns on a separate loop of effects, so that I'm only using pedals that I want to use at a time. But more importantly, my signal isn't going through all these pedals all at once. getting all dirty and dragged down going through these, plus there's fewer chances for something to go wrong. So this was my pedal board back in the day. Uh, Sort of a little bit to understand that the signal goes into the silver guy, and then I tell it where to go from there. This is sort of, you know, traffic keeper, gatekeeper guy. Then it comes out of this into the big green guy, which is delay, um, and then reverb, and then I plug my amp in over here. So when I'm looking at this big giant pedal board, my signal goes into this silver thing, and then each one of these turns on either one or two pedals in here. The bright green light you see here is a bypass that turns off everything. The first pedal here is the first button I click here turns on this one and this one. I just had it set up that way. And what's interesting is you have to think not only in terms of like your signal flow, but where things are going to go on the board too. You got to have cables to connect them, and you got to be able to fit everything you need on there. And then this next one goes to this cluster of 3 pedals here. The next button here might be empty because I moved that into the same thing. This pretty pink pedal on the end is a button on its own, as is this skinny little boost pedal. This long guy in the middle here is a volume pedal. I keep it like right in the middle of everything so that I can control everything. But that is all. A lot of this has to, like, the layout has a lot to do with how I can fit the pedals on the board and be close enough to each other that I can get the cabling and everything. But how it's actually set up, the order in which I have the different kinds of effects we use on our pedal board is also pretty important. So we have different kinds of effects when we're trying to control our tone. You know, if we have just a straight, we can turn this thing on. Straight, clean guitar sound, pretty much the same as just plugging straight into the amp. There's that volume pedal. And, oh, I apologize. There we go. That might sound a little better. So the straight, clean guitar sound, there's nothing on it. And what we want to think about is the different kinds of effects that we have and where they go in the chain of effects. So the first one we often think about is overdrive. Overdrive is what makes your guitar sound, cool and heavy and loud. A lot of the time we just go to the amp and turn that on, but as cool as the amp's effect sound, to use some of them you might need a foot switch to get to them, because we're not always just using one tone. We need to be able to control and change our tone. We want to be able to play a clean guitar sound and then turn on a fuzzy, distorted sound to play rock stuff. And that's at my feet, so I can get from a clean tone to an overdriven tone real quick. So like drive is one sort of group of effects, and we'll bust into that a little bit more too. And then we have modulation effects, which are things like phasers, flangers, tremolo, um, things like that. Things that affect the sound, but not like uh, in a way that it's changing the what's coming through the amp as far as like distortion. Um, it actually changes like depending on what it is. A tremolo would give you like a pulsing sound. Um, and I don't have on my old pedal board. I had like a modulation multi effect unit, the big blue thing that we saw. Uh, I'll show you again. The big blue pedal is a multi effect modulation unit. So I had 4 presets on here that I would have, like a phaser, a flanger, some kind of really wild thing that made my guitar sound like it was made out of bubbles or something. And then this one, I might have something kind of subtle that's just like you wonder, oh, is there like a shimmer effect on his guitar? And it was modded with a big knob on top here, which was essentially an expression knob, uh, so that I didn't need a separate expression pedal to control and change parameters of any one of these effects. I could just sort of turn that with my foot because it's big. Um, and then we have delays and reverbs, which are like time-based effects, which there's another whole can of worms we'll get into with time-based effects too. But where we keep all these in the signal flow is pretty important, and that gets into like depending on what kind of amp you're using, you might want to use the drive channel on your amp with and put your like overdrive pedals, what we call in front of the amp. Um, so like you would plug your guitar into the overdrive pedal and then the overdrive pedal into the front of the amp. Um, and then there are also on the back of the amp you might have an effects loop. And the effects loop is something that a lot of guitarists sort of ignore, and I don't know if it's because they don't understand what it is or it's just sort of too complicated, but it can have a dramatic effect on your tone. It's sort of like a really nice mix function. So you can um, use your drive pedals and things in front of the amp and your time pedals, like your delays and your reverbs, through the effects loop, and sometimes even your modulation pedals too through the effects loop. And that'll sort of give your drive tone will be there, and then your wet modulated, delayed, and reverb tone will also be coming through the amp at the same time. Helps you give you a bigger, more lush tone. Um, but a lot of the time, then you need to have a cable going to from your guitar to your pedal board, and then one going from your pedal board to the front of the amp, and then one going from your pedal board to the back of the amp for the effects loop. But it's a effects loop. It's a loop. You've got to get back to your pedal board. So there's four cables that are involved now. So a lot of the time I think that it might just be it's a complex operation for it to have a pedal board and then like other things. So sometimes people even have patch boards on their pedal boards. It's absurd to find that perfect tone. Um, but so we've got drive effects, modulation, and then timed effects like delay and reverb. Um, we first we should talk about the drive effects. drive effects are not just overdrive. There is a distinct difference between an overdrive, a distortion, and a fuzz. Now I've got on my pedal board, on the picture of my pedal board that we see here, I have this OCD, the obsessive compulsive distortion. I think Full Tone makes that pedal. It's a great overdrive, mildly insensitive name, but really great overdrive. It sounds good. It's not terribly expensive. You can get a bunch of different tones depending on where you put that drive channel, or that, the drive knob. I don't have an overdrive pedal on my pedal board right here. However, I do have one on my pedal board currently, so we'll hear what that sounds like in just a moment. Underneath that, we see the fuzz pedal, which I had to take off my pedal board because I had a bad cable that kept shorting things out. But next to this is the decimator. The decimator is a noise gate which stops that. My dog is barking at me. The decimator stops any crazy noises that essentially come from the fuzz pedal. But overdrive, I don't have an overdrive on my pedal board right now just because I rely too heavily on the distortion and fuzz. But overdrive would essentially just push your amp a little bit harder to get a little more saturation out of the tubes, rather than introducing real harsh overtones to the sounds that you're already making. But I want that harsh, so I've been using that OCD for a while. Now I'm using a different distortion pedal. Hush! Somebody knocked on my door. But for now, I've been using the TC Electronics Mojo. Hush! Look at keep going. It's a distortion pedal. You can hear that this is my clean tone. Gives it a much more dirty sound. And I would typically have that plugged into the front of my amp so that it was pushing my tubes as well, but giving me a really crunchy tone. That sounds great with like palm muting and things too. After the drive channel, we would then go to our modulation effects, which you can put in the effects loop to give you a nice sort of transparent tone with your phases and your flange, things like that. I have a bunch of different things that I've used in the past, and I've sort of whittled things down to what I've been using lately, mostly to clear up a little weight. It's hard to carry all this stuff. One of my favorite things on here is that I have this whammy pedal, which is really neat because it has, not only does it have like harmonics, it also has an expression pedal attached to it. That's this big red pedal. So it can do two different harmonies depending on if my toe or my heel is down. But then also I can set it to do, like, if my heel is down, it's the natural tone, but if my toe is down, it goes up to 2 octaves. So I can use that to play songs that have unique sounds. Like sometimes you got to play, I think it's Gin and Juice. Um, there's the guitar solo in Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name. He's using this whammy pedal. They can also go an octave down. Like in the Black Keys. Lonely Boy. So those are your modulation effects. I don't have a phaser or a flanger or anything on my pedal board right now. But we can hear what a phaser sounds like. So you can hear that, like, it's taking my whole guitar sound and sort of giving it that wave. If I had put this through the effects loop, you would still hear, like, you'd hear the wave, but you'd also hear just my clean guitar coming through as well. So real, like, tone purists are using effects loops. People that are just going for, hey, that sounds really cool. Typically just plug into the amp and use everything at the front of the amp. So let's see, that's a phaser. Let's see what else we've got here. A shimmer effect. That would be something that sounds really great with long open chords. Even ugly chords sound pretty with a shimmer. And I brought up tremolo earlier. Tremolo is a weird word that has a lot of meanings in music. But when we're talking about guitar effects, this is tremolo. And you can typically control, how fast that is, how harsh of a sort of a gate that is. You can sort of just have it like a wave, like a volume wave, sort of. Or you can have it be like a really sharp staccato sound. One really great example of a tremolo effect is in Pink Floyd's Money. He has such a sharp tremolo on his really like treble heavy tone. It almost sounds like a machine or something. It's a really cool tone. This has an octaver on here that's just. Octavers are really great. There's been like in the past like 10 or 15 years an influx of two-piece bands, just like a guitarist or a bassist and a drummer, and that's all they need. And a lot of the time they get away with this by using octave pedals. They might, if they're playing a guitar, they might be playing with an octave lower. Have been other bands where they play a bass, but they play through a pedal that has an octave up. One band I really liked was I forget what they were called. You guys probably know them and are probably saying the name of the band out loud right now. But what I really liked about what they did, they were a two-piece band, a bass player and a drummer, and the bass player would play through a bass amp, and like he had a splitter that would split his tone to a guitar amp that used something sort of like this whammy pedal, where I can set it to be a fifth harmony, which if any of my guitar students know, a fifth harmony is a power chord. It's the first and fifth notes of the scale. It's what a power chord is. So this whammy pedal can play, if I play a note, it'll play that note and its fifth. So I play one note and it's a power chord. So I can play some really crazy sounding stuff, and it sounds like I'm really working my power chord flexing, but it's really just a pedal that I turned on. But this guy was playing a bass, split his tone to go to a bass amp, but then also his tone went to one of these pedals coming through a guitar amp. So everything he played on bass, it sounded like a guitarist was also playing it with power chords. That's pretty brilliant. Um, Plus, it's just really cool. Like, how cool is it playing with one, with a killer tone coming through one amp behind you, and now you've got two? Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so yeah, and I'm not even sure if that qualifies as a modulation tone or what, but um, we've got chorus. Chorus is one of my favorite sort of effects to add to a clean tone. Turn that whammy off. Makes it sound big and pretty. What it's doing is it's sort of duplicating your tone and slightly detuning it so that the if you imagine the sound waves coming through, it's all mirrored. The sound waves coming through, if it's slightly detuned, the sound wave is just a little bit different, making it just seem a little thicker. So the chorus literally thickens your tone and makes it sound pretty. And you can control like how deep that chorus goes, and the mix. A lot of the time, it's called a wet to dry ratio. Wet being how much chorus is, and dry is like just sort of your clean tone. Um, that's a
Fred, you're um really glitching.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, it might be on your end there, Gary. I can see Shred just fine.
That is a bummer.
It's my internet.
Could be.
So that's a lot of the modulation tones I wanted to look at. I also have on my pedal board, see if I can share this one more time, the Pog 2, which is brilliant. It's this big pink guy here. You see it's got a whole bunch of sliders and stuff. The Pog 2 is the polyphonic octave generator 2. There was a Pog before it that was bigger. What's really great about the Pog is polyphonic octave generator. Polyphonic means multiple tones. Octave generator, it's playing octaves of whatever I play. So if I turn this thing on, here on my guitar sort of sounds like an organ or something. It also has 8 presets, so I can like make a tone that I'm going to use for a song and save it. But you can get some really wild sounds. So when it says polyphonic octave generator, what it's meaning is it can generate numerous octaves of whatever you play. And it's polyphonic. You can play multiple notes. Whereas a lot of times with an octave generator, if you play a power chord, it goes crazy. It doesn't know if it should generate the octave of your root or your fifth. So a polyphonic octave generator can generate octaves of multiple notes, and it can do multiple octaves. I have I'm going to just go ahead and turn this down, and I'm going to show you what some of these sliders do on this thing. The first slider is my dry output. That's just the guitar tone. The next slider is a 2-octave drop. That's crazy. On my higher notes, you can hear the 2 notes together. The next slider is 1 octave. All together with all 3 of them. Then plus 1 octave. Plus 1 octave would be We'll try a different preset. So it goes from -2 octaves up to +2 octaves. That sounds pretty cool. And that's literally like my clean tone pushed through this pedal too. So I'm a little bit nervous about this, but you hear all that noise? It's a lot of noise. It sounds great. Oh, that's a killer tone, but I can't stand this noise. What am I gonna do? How do I get rid of that noise? Oh, that's where that decimator comes in. It's literally a noise gate, a noise suppressor. So the Pog 2 is kind of noisy. The overdrive's really noisy. Together they make this crazy sound. I turn on the decimator. That sound's gone. My tone still comes through though. A lot of the time people buy pedals they think sound really great. Like the Pog 2. It's an expensive pedal. I actually was fortunate enough to be friends with somebody that bought a second one because he thought he lost this one, so he let me borrow this one indefinitely. I'll give it back to him, I swear. But a lot of the time we don't think about controlling our tone in like the times when we're not playing. My guitar is on right now. But I have that decimator on, and that's not even an expensive pedal either. But it's something that a lot of guitarists overlook that they shouldn't. A noise suppressor really locks things down. Because remember, this was my tone without it. This was just ringing out between songs. Anytime during a song that I wasn't playing and the singer's trying to get really into the song, this is what I had going on. There we go. So that's the Pog 2. It's really cool. I use it a lot of the time when I'm playing in a band and I don't have a synthesizer player. That's like my go-to if I'm maybe without the overdrive, but it can sort of give you an organ sound. You can fake string sounds. I can turn the attack up so that I hit a note and it sort of swells in. And that's really helpful when you're trying to fake string parts on the guitar. And what I really love is it's a pedal made by Electro Harmonics, and they make a lot of really great pedals. And on their website, they have some really great resources for figuring out how to emulate sounds from particular songs using their pedals. And they make a bunch of different pedals that like are specifically made to sound like organs. But they'll show you how to make the sounds for a song. If you're really trying to sound just like that song, they'll show you how to make that sound with these pedals. I had a pedal on my pedal board over here. This pink guy. All the way over on the left side here. It's upside down. I like to keep it upside down because then it keeps this, like with the two lights and the rainbow, it's a smile. And then I just sort of thought my pedal board was smiling at me. That's a really unique pedal. I don't have it on my pedal board right now, so I can't show you how it sounds without looking up an example online. But that one, you would strum a chord or hit a note or anything, and it would like launch into this like candy land of delicious synthesizer sounds that, I mean, it's all like generated by whatever parameters you have set on these each of those knobs. and I don't even remember what all those knobs do because they're ridiculous. You could get all kinds of crazy sounds out of it. It's not super practical, particularly on the road and everything, but when I was playing in a heavy psychedelic rock band, Lemon Sky, we were often looking for weird, trippy, sort of synthy, psychedelic sounds to record, and that pedal was great for it. That's the Earthquaker Devices Rainbow Machine, and there is not a more apt name for this pedal. Um, Again, like not something that's like super practical when you're just playing out on the road and stuff, but really cool sounds. Um, I think that that is probably good for our modulation discussion here, but now we're going to talk a little bit about delays and reverbs. And the order in which we've discussed these is sort of how I put them in my chain too. If I'm lucky enough to be able to have an amp that has an effects loop, and I can sort of arrange my pedals so that I can use my modulation and timed effects through the effects loop and my drive effects in front of the amp, then that's great. But like right now, I don't have the means to do that, so everything's going to the front of the amp. So I keep them sort of in that order. My wah is at the front with the compressor outside of everything. That's just like as soon as I go in there, if I want to make it wah, it's wah right out the gate. Um, and then drive effects, modulations, timed effects. So now the timed effects, I have everything that comes through goes into the silver guy that controls everything. So I have my first button here is well, the first one I have is the whammy, so I can get to it real quick. But then I have the drive, a drive channel. So when I want drive, I turn on that channel, and either my overdrive or my fuzz would turn on, depending on what I have turned on. Um, the next channel on the silver guy is uh, my modulation effects. So that would turn on this big blue guy here. Um, the modulation effects would turn on this guy here. And then my timed effects come after everything, the big green box and the little black pedal up here. So the big green box is what I've been using as my delay pedal. It's an outrageously popular, like for all time guitarists, delay pedal. There have been delay pedals that have come out on the market since that are vastly superior and sometimes don't cost all that much more money in the grand scheme of things. Like this pedal, the Line 6 DL4 digital delay unit has been on the market for 25, 30 years or something. And like it has its issues, but it's still the most popular delay like ever. Um, the TC Electronics Flashback X4 is a brilliant delay pedal that's comparable to this one, built in a sturdier box, same exact price, but it's not the DL4, so the DL4 is still going to outsell it. And a lot of the time, you have to get the DL4 modded anyway because it's not the sturdiest design. You'll end up breaking um, your little knobs here, your little buttons. You know, they call it a stomp box. So I mean, we stomp on it to make sure we're in time and everything. Um, and this one all the way over on the right of the pedal is the tap tempo. So like you might tap that 6 or 8 times real quick. So a lot of times those switches go out. You got to replace them. Um, but regardless, it's still number one delay pedal. And there's a reason for that. It's got the tap tempo and then 3 presets. The knob all the way over to the left here has all these different delay sounds, these different kinds of delays. Um, sometimes it could be a stereo delay. On the back of the pedal, it has stereo out. Um, so like you could go to 2 amps, and I'll tell you what, nothing feels better than like swimming in a lush sea of just guitar delayed tone, especially if you're like jamming along to something that's also in stereo and you've got a stereo tone. It's great. Um, and then there's some weird titles for these knobs here that you control the tone with, the delay with. The delay time, that's kind of obvious. Seems a little bit strange because you do have the tap tempo, but you can really dial in the exact like uh, frequency of your delay and everything. And actually, frequency is the next knob. It's they have it labeled repeats. Sometimes it's called a frequency. It's really just how many times when you hit that, how many times does it repeat. I'll turn on my delay right now so we can hear it. I have a longer delay set. Oh, and I'm still going through the pog too. And now I could tap the tempo here. I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see sort of what I'm doing. I have a tap tempo here so I can like tap that. Some newer delays are really nice. You can have it, you can set it so where you tap the tempo, and when you play, it'll play the quarter notes that you tapped, or it'll play a dotted quarter note so you can get that really cool, like, wobbly Pink Floyd sound. Or it'll play both. Whereas a lot of times, if my tempo is, and I want that Pink Floyd, you know, another brick in the wall type of thing, I like tap out the dotted quarter note. Maybe. So like some more modern delays will give you that, but this thing still outsells them. I don't get it. The next couple knobs are weird. They're called tweak and tweeze. I don't really remember exactly what they do, but that seemed like it added like a chorus. I don't know what tweeze does. And then there's the mix at the end, and that's pretty obvious at your dry tone versus your wet tone. And you can set these presets so that you know you find the perfect tone for another brick in the wall, and you save it so that you can get right to it when you get there. There's a lot of really cool ones on here. I like this one a lot. Yeah, it's reversed. Everything's weird. It's pretty crazy. I've actually used this one on a recording. I wasn't playing the guitar part that had it, so I only remember the rhythm part. But in Lemon Sky's Submarines, the melodic guitar part comes in using this reversed thing, and it's interesting to like set everything so that you've got it how it sounds great, and then have to like adjust your playing to make sure you know the reverse sounds the way you want it to, and then you like the people in the room that aren't wearing the headphones just hear the you know the strings playing in the room. It's kind of weird. But then sometimes you just need like a quick slapback delay. I had one song where the part I was playing was like a but then it was cool. And then we started messing with the delay, and it was like and suddenly it was like a wildly different guitar part just with a quick one repeat slapback delay. And I like suddenly like the guitar part way more. And what's really fun is like I play in a cover band. We play a lot of songs, like, and we might play 45 to 55 songs in a night, depending on the night and the songs, but they're not always the same song, so I can't, with 3 presets, be prepared for every single song. So a lot of the time, I keep my 3 presets to sort of a short delay, a medium delay, a long delay, with like a tempo that is sort of around what I might need it for that sound. And then I can tap tempo, like I can turn on my short delay and tap tempo to get to the exact tempo I need for whatever song I'm playing. And sometimes you can use a delay not as like a, but just as like a fill out your sound. And that, like, it almost works as a modulation effect as well at that point. Um, so delay, and like, you can get into a little bit of trouble with some delays, um, where sometimes you have like an infinite delay on and you don't realize it, and like notes that you're playing or just keep going, and like the whole band's playing, you can't really feel it, and then the song stops and you realize that like this kind of sound's been going on in the background for 4 minutes. So it is a beast that's hard to control. Um, Sometimes a delay pedal might have a looper function too, and a different kind of looper than like the silver thing at the bottom of my thing that makes like circuit chain loops. It will loop what you're playing. So like I can so now I have this thing like looping what I just played. Which is really great. A lot of the times, a lot of the time when like an acoustic performer is playing out, they might use a looper pedal to play a rhythm part, and then they can solo over it. But this is another thing that, like, as cool as it is, it really invites a lot of issues. Sometimes you might not realize you hit the wrong button, and you're like, you did the rhythm part, and then you hit record another loop, and then you started soloing, and then every loop it's recording everything you're doing, and suddenly there's a rhythm track and 4 of you soloing over top of it. You got to be really careful. Plus then you make it to your next gig and for some reason your delay pedal's not working. What is going on? You still have it set on loop mode. Oh, duh. Played through a whole set without my delay pedal like a fool because I had it set to the wrong setting. I played in a like southern funk country band for a while, and I played through a multi-effects unit that I didn't realize had a pad on the back of the unit, like right where you plug in. It had a 20 decibel pad, which a pad is something that we typically use in recording. When you're recording something really loud, you don't want to hurt your microphone or your preamps or anything. So you would put a pad on it to make it quieter. Um, Sometimes that's just like a setting on a piece of equipment. Sometimes it's on a microphone. Sometimes it's on a pedal board. I played for years with that pad on, not realizing, like, why do I always have to turn my amp up louder than I should? Um, so with all of this equipment, it comes with, you gotta like pay attention. You gotta know what you're doing, um, and be able to troubleshoot on the fly. I've definitely had gigs where I'm sweating because my pedal board's acting funky, keeps cutting out. I don't know where the faulty cable is. Something's not plugged in. What's going on? Have to lift up my pedal board. Um, yeah, but if you put everything together right and it's all, you know, they're all good cables and everything, you should be fine. But you definitely want to be able to troubleshoot for things like that. So yeah, that's delay. Delay's great. there are lots of different types of delays. I'm sort of running out of time, so I probably can't go too deep into like all the different types of delays. It'd be really best if like you had a sound that you're looking for to just dig in with your delay and like play something with each sound and see what you like. Uh, of what's on here, I really liked a lot of the stereo delays and everything. Um, Space Echo is like a famous delay that I loved using back in the when I was in the studio with Lemon Sky. Um, but but it's really best to just play with it and find what you like for whatever tone you're looking for. But then last in the chain on my pedal board, and what I really feel like is the best place for it is my reverb. Now you could probably put your reverb before the delay. I've done both. I didn't like sending a reverb signal through the delay. I wanted my delayed signal to be in the reverb because reverb, what we really think about is the room. Reverb is the like fictional synthetic room that you're making for your tone. It's what makes it sound like you're playing in a cave or a hall or out in space or underwater or whatever. Um, so I've had my reverb turned down, but it was on. So this is my clean tone. Oh wait. This is my clean tone. This is my reverb. Makes it sound like we're, not in my like, rock and roll closet. This sounds like rock and roll closet. This sounds like well, it says SG. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what SG means. If that's it's a specific type of reverb. They can't put all these long names on there, but I like a plate reverb. Plate reverbs are really cool, especially in the studio. You hear how lush that sounds? But yeah, I keep it at the end of my chain so that everything I push with my drive. I add a little phase in my modulation. It goes to the delay to get the big epic, I'm in an, uh, long notes that are repeating and everything. And then the reverb really puts us in the space that we're in with our tone. So that's most of my pedal board there. And this is really just like sort of 101. This is like one way to set up a pedal board with multiple smaller units. There are so many different ways to set up a pedal board. Uh, uh, there are multi-effect units that I've used. There's a multi-effect unit that I'm thinking about putting on my board to replace this silver guy down at the bottom that has effects built into it, as well as the looper function, the circuit loop, not the repeat your phrases loop. Um, and then there are like pedals that they're like big control units that go to a rack of separate pedals that a lot of really big famous guitarists use. Um, that could either be a rack of pedals or a rack of like digital effect units. Um, One of my favorite, I'll watch these rig rundowns with famous bands. One of my favorite setups is Metallica's Kirk Hammett. He's using a wireless system. He's running around their big circular stage. He's got 5 wah pedals strategically placed across the stage, all on the same breaker, so that he can just walk up and start using it. And there's a guy backstage who, as soon as he's done, just turns off all Kirk Hammett's wah pedals. Just like resets the circuit or whatever, so he can walk up and just use whatever one he wants then walk away, and somebody backstage fixes it and makes sure everything's right. But this is just like, this is an extreme example of like the DIY, put together your own pedal board of the unique pedals that you have that you like. It can get as big and crazy as you want. I'm actually in the process of trying to break my pedal board down into 2 pedal boards. And I'm thinking it might be a drive side and an effects loop side. Um, but then I also want to share with you guys one more quick image, um, which is just easier to show you this way than to actually try to lift my pedal board up and show you. But I want to show you the bottom of my pedal board, underneath it, how I have everything wired together. Because as you saw, there were a lot of pedals on there. I think I had 16 pedals at one time. So I had to have 2 of the Voodoo Lab pedal power supplies. 2 of them there. Those are $180 a piece, which was painful. But I needed 2 of them on there. Everything's all wired together nice and neat, so nothing drags, nothing gets unplugged or anything. And it's all tucked in there nice and neat. I had this big long power strip at the bottom that everything plugged into, and there's a power switch on the back of it with a long cable. So that I just set my pedal board down, I plug it into the wall, or the front of the stage power. I plug my guitar into the right side, my amp into the left side, and I'm ready to roll. And I can't tell you, I mean, you can imagine if you walk up and see a band playing and they're killing it, they're, crazy guitar solos, really great songwriting and everything, and then you come up to the front of the stage and you see this thing, you can't not stick around after the set and ask questions when it looks like there's a piece of a spaceship standing at the guitarist's feet. But I just want to real quick, one more signal flow. I go in through the compressor. We didn't really talk much about the compressor. What that does is make all your notes the same volume, which is really effective with the wah, because sometimes your lower frequencies don't really cut like your higher frequencies do. So when you use the compressor with the wah, it really helps everything stay even. And then I go into the silver guy, where everything branches out. The whammy pog, the OCD, fuzz and the decimator, the modulation, the rainbow machine we didn't get to, the delay, and the reverb. And if everything's all laid out how you like it, and then another thing is, like, this is not the first pedal board I put together. I've put together so many smaller and different pedal boards, and eventually when I got this giant thing for a pretty good price, and I could fit everything I wanted on there, it took a lot of toying around to find the not only the layout as far as the signal flow, because sometimes it even changes. If you want to use multiple overdrives together, you might want one in front of the other or the other way around. But also figuring out how you can fit everything on there with the cables that you have without spending another $60 on, like, solderless cables, so that you can just pinch them and stick them together. Or should you solder them, because they're sturdier that way, but it takes more time and doesn't cost really anything different, but you gotta get better at soldering.
Shred, I think you could talk for days about pedal boards, couldn't you?
Probably. We don't have any questions or anything, do we?
Too late.
I've just asked you guys something. Okay.
What's up?
Shredward, could you please send the pic of your paddleboard to my dad, like email it, because my brother probably wants to see it.
Yeah, so we're actually recording this session right now.
Okay.
So real soon we'll be sharing all of the recordings for our master classes for you guys to check out anytime.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So I want to say thank you to Shred for knocking this out today. I'm sure we will have more gear tech next week. And I'm sure there will be opportunities for more guitar gear tech. But for the rest of the week, we've got songwriting. There's a healthy singing seminar, music theory. And on Saturday, we're going to interview Shredward at 4:30. Should be a lot
Yay.
of fun.
That'll be fun.
And don't forget our artist series this week. We've got Phil X from Bon Jovi. Tomorrow we've got Joywave, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and Glenn Sobel on Friday. I know, this is a crazy week. So it should be a good time. We'll see you guys all in an hour for Phil X. Join us at the artist sessions. And thank you, Shred.
Thank you. You guys have a good one. Thank you.